Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. We thank GoFan and VNN, the exclusive sponsors of the UIAAA Connection. Now operating as one combined company, GoFan and VNN offer a seamless experience through digital ticketing and athletic websites. They make it easy to direct fans to one central place for schedules, communication, and tickets for both home and away events. We appreciate GoFan and VNN for their continued support and exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Eric Kjar, 7-time state football champion in the state of Utah and 6-time state track champion in the state of Utah, recently named the head coach at Weber State University. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Thanks, Hutch. Glad to be on it.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, your background, etc.
Yeah, so I grew up in Kemmerer, Wyoming. I had 3 older brothers and a younger sister. My dad worked, there at the coal power plant, and just grew up doing a lot of things that kids in Wyoming do. Just hunted, fished, played sports. Spent a lot of my time basically just doing those things, and close knit family. Spent a lot of time, with my siblings, just doing those types of things and being in the outdoors. And then played sports, loved football, really loved baseball. Kind of growing up was kind of my favorite one, and then kind of that turned more into football probably around my 7th or 8th grade year, somewhere in there. And then still played basketball in high school and ran track and did those things, but really kind of started loving football probably around 8th grade, 9th grade. Kind of was when I fell in love with it. Just enjoyed the game. The practice part of it, really enjoyed watching it a ton, which is probably how I started really watching it. Watching a lot of football games on college football games on TV, especially BYU games when I was younger. And got recruited slightly out of high school. In Wyoming, it's a little bit tough. There's not a ton of recruiting attention in Wyoming. It's not a hotbed, I think, for high school athletes necessarily. And my town was really small. We were a small school. I graduated with 78 people. So we had a few schools come in, a few NAI schools, a few Division II schools that were interested. I decided to go to Snow Junior College and played a year there and met my wife. And then actually did a little semester there of spring ball at Dakota State University, where I was with a coach that then went to a Division II school, and then I set out a little bit and then went there with him, which was Wayne State College, and played there for 4.5 years. We were there. My wife got her master's degree there, and I finished school there too, and loved playing there. Played in the Northern Sun Conference, and things went really great there. Played quarterback, and then had a few injuries and moved to receiver and played well there, and just enjoyed it. Just had a lot of good people that I got to meet and be around. Like head coach, Coach Hoffman, and Coach Rowe and Matt Ants, and a lot of those guys that were just good dudes to be around at that point and learn a lot from.
Let's talk a little bit more about your playing days in Wayne. I know that's where your oldest son Noah was born, but 4 years there. Explain to our people that may not be familiar with the Nebraska geography or where exactly Wayne, America is, and then maybe share a couple of stories.
It's in the northeast corner of Nebraska. Just kind of, it's about 45 minutes from the Iowa border there, where Sioux City is. And when we probably the funniest story is when we first got there, just my wife's reaction to being like in Nebraska was, it was just kind of a pure like reaction to her being in there. It's definitely was a jump from, Salt Lake City to be there. It's just so different than out here. I had been kind of used to small town stuff, and it was a big change. for her. And then what else was probably different? We drove 45 minutes to church on Sundays. That was a big difference. Um, it was just fun though. Just, I think it's something we both look at, and like we learned so much and grew a ton as a couple out there, along like just learning a lot about each other and just being in a different environment. The people out there were awesome. So there's some good times we had there. Not a lot there. We finally got a McDonald's, I think, my junior year there. It was small.
And so talk about your son Noah eating McDonald's with his high C orange in his little chair in front of
Yeah.
the TV.
Yeah, he would do that. He was tough to eat for a little while there, so we would do whatever we could to get him to eat some. It was fun having him in college too. Just he would be at games, getting to kind of chill with him after games was fun. We had him at the end of my junior year, so he came to all my senior year games. Born on Thanksgiving Day, and that was just a fun thing for both of us. It was a lot to manage, but to have him out there with us, and he's never been out there since then. So at some point, we got to take a trip.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's have you talk for a minute about some of the mentors and the leaders that you've had in your life growing up and professionally as a high school and now a college coach that have made a difference.
Yeah, probably the biggest influence, like overall, is just probably parents. Just the way that I was raised, work ethic, kind of moving forward, working through adversity and different things like that was a big deal. I think that helped lay a good foundation, and then having some good support around there with my siblings and things like that. And then on a professional side, starting with high school, some really good guys that coached me when I was in high school, that were just really good at what they did and just good mentors. John Scott was one that comes to mind too, that really kind of got me excited about football in general. Just the way he was as a coach, the way he carried himself, the way he taught us was important, I think, in kind of wanting me to go into this profession. And then just some other guys, that were along with there. All your high school coaches are great to look back on. And then even just college wise too, there was some really good mentors there, like Coach Hoffman, who reached out to me, intermittently when we've had success at the high school level. And then when I took this job at Weber, he reached out and we discussed and talked about a few things, and he gave me some good advice that I asked for. Just a good man that really cared about his athletes. I think that you still learn like pieces from that, on how to be around and how to treat your players and do things that way. I think it's a big part of it. And Coach Ants had a good influence, somebody I looked up to. That's the head coach now at Fresno State. You could kind of tell he was going to do big things, even just coming out of Wayne State as a linebackers coach, like back in the time. Just really sharp guy, cared about his players, really good motivator, just things like that, that I think shape you. And then in the high school ranks, when I first started coaching, getting an opportunity, Coach Jacobson, great guy that gave me a chance to really coordinate offense early, which is a big deal, and learned and grew through that quickly. I learned a lot from Wayne Jones, who was an offensive line coach and at the time, and just really smart guy with scheme and structure, and understood offensive line play better than anybody I had been around, and really learned a lot from him. And then even just guys like watching, Kevin Egan, who I'm still close with, special teams guy that was with us during those years, just learning a lot, with how he handled stuff and just professionally going about his business. You watch and you learn so much, and you have so many people that have really helped shape you that you look around and see. And there's been a ton that I'm sure I'll miss. And even, my in-laws, which would include you, Hutch, there's been big influences there in this process of getting to this spot. You just learn so much from the people around you, and you have to recognize that. I really feel like, to understand why you're there, who you've become, people you need to, be grateful for and thankful for, because they do play a big role in who you are and what you end up working and becoming, and they support you and they help you out in this journey, which is tough. College coach, high school coach is really tough. College coaching, as you learn more and more, it gets to be really tough too. So you have to have good people behind you.
Great examples. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Coach. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Man, that's a good one. Whew. Probably the biggest thing that I would say, it doesn't have anything to do with wins and losses. I think you get to a point in your career where you feel like you could have done a better job for kids in general, across the board in high school. I think, just serving them better, being a better leader for them, and putting them in a better situation, and maybe guiding them in ways that could have maybe helped them either understand things better, or maybe given them better opportunities, and guide them better, whether it's in life or in, that specific sport. I think that's probably the biggest one you look at. You learn so much as a coach, and you look back and reflect and try to improve and be better. And there's definitely things that I wish I could have been better with, through that course, serving just high school kids and trying to teach them things. They're so impressionable, and they learn so much. I think at that age, I think there's always an opportunity. I think similar to like it being a parent. I think as a parent, you have, things you wish you did better, and regrets that way too, and things that you want to improve on. So that would probably be the biggest thing, where it's not necessarily like a win or a loss, just more in general of really trying to be better for kids, and do a better job in guiding them and helping them and coaching them. And situationally, I know there's some things I could have been better in for sure.
Thanks for sharing that. Allow me to ask a follow-up. So along that same line, so the job of today's coach in high school, of which you were a football and a track coach, a successful one, how has it changed since you first started? And that's got to be over 20 years ago when you first
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. 22 years. It's changed a lot. I think there's some big factors that have kind of jumped in, and I think it's good. I think probably the biggest one is just the mental health side of stuff, just being more aware of that, and like trying to help kids in that. It's become a real battle for kids, I think, in trial. Just it's something, for whatever reason, that's around a lot more, and there's probably some really good scientific reasons for it. And that, I don't know that matters as much as that understanding, like how to help kids with it, and watch for warning signs, and being able to help guide them, and be a positive influence on them. The other thing I think that's changed a lot too is I think they get so focused on like the reward from the outside, um, which I think is important, right? You need that. I think that's a lot of social media stuff. The reaffirmation of social media, I think, is a problem in general for high school kids, because they put so much on who they are, or what they can be, into what others think. And I think we all kind of do that a little bit, but I think it's been reinforced so much by social media that it's created an issue with that, with players just in general, of being able to them to be, satisfied with where they're at, and comfortable and happy with who they are, the way they've played, the way they're preparing. And I think that's been a big change. The part that's a little bit different is I coach kids hard, and I always have. But I think that comes with a caveat that I think if you're going to do that, even in today's day and age, you got to show them a lot of love, and a lot of that you care about them too. And I try to really make sure I do that. I try to, build them up, and try to, know about them, or know things about them from a personal level that I can connect, and not just so I can coach them hard, but just because I care about them. Like I want to be able to, be involved and help mentor and guide them as much as I can, and be able to kind of know more about them as a person, I think, is critical to that. So that part, I think, is still the same. I think that's still there. I think just having more of a human element as a coach, in dealing with those kind of things, can pay off big for kids and for yourself in this profession. There's more reward in that than there'll ever be in winning games, for sure. Like if you're going to base your success off of that you're going to not be happy. You got to base it off of like the difference you make for kids, and being able to be invested in them, and love and care about them, and try to serve them the right way. That's going to be way more rewarding, and you're going to be successful if you're doing it that way anyway. So That's been a big change, I think, where I think there's been a little bit of a shift. Not that the old guys were doing it wrong. I think they did it the right way. I loved my coaches growing up, and they were tough. Like I had some really tough guys that were hard on us, and it was great for me. Like it made me, into, the person I am now. I think it was great, but yeah, it's definitely a different avenue. But like I said, just taking that, personal or even more human centered approach where you care about them, but you want to push them, you want to help them get better because you care about them. Like it'd be the same way, with your own child, that you would push them. But you also got to care about them too, and be careful. It's definitely it's something that you have to take a lot of care in, and a lot of, you have to be mindful as you go through that process of coaching, those kids. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and just showing up and, rolling out a game plan or rolling out a practice plan. It's different for sure.
That's some great insight. Thank you for sharing that. And talking about wins and losses, I have to ask you about this because, as you know, my grandson played for you during this, but you would never bring this up, but you have the record in the state of Utah for 48 straight wins. And during that time, I never heard you once mention to the boys, this is number 40, number 41. I know other coaches did, I know other players did, but talk about that, what you just said about, it's about coaching and not about the wins, but the fact of how incredible 48 in a row is. You had two kids on that team. One of them is your son, Noah. The other one, JPJ, who plays for the Raiders, who went through their high school career 51-1, which is unthinkable, unfathomable. So I just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, those are always, what do they call that stuff? Like, I can't remember, there's a name, but just thinking about it, or even like really honestly, like putting any thought to it, is really just kind of poison. What do they call it? Rat poison in the coaching profession. Just because it really detracts from what is important, which is the process. Like thinking about like winning is just, it's a waste of time. Really, it's the process that you have to focus on. And that's what you have to remember as a coach. I think a lot of times we stress or we get caught up in the fact of wins and losses, but the process and guiding that and ensuring you're doing that the right way and just checking it off, and focusing on the effort and the passion and the excitement you put into that is going to be what's going to lead to that. As you look back, those things are always great. And they matter, but they don't matter as much as like coaching JPJ, like those memories and that fun time, or coaching Noah and like being around him and being around Cole Hagan and all those guys that were part of those teams. I'll look fondly more back on that and how fun that was, and just exciting. And we still text and stuff more than the 48 game win streak for sure. And that's not trying to be like humble. It's just what I think about. It's not like, oh, I won 48 games in a row. It's not it's we at the time. Honestly, it was a bunch of kids, but honestly, the part that matters more is just being being a part of their lives and having fun with them, and going and see Cole Hagan getting married this last summer, and messing around with him. Like the relationships you get from that as a byproduct is amazing. And it just happened to be that we won a lot of games with a lot of good kids that were fun to be around during that time. And I mean, I loved every minute of that. And it was mostly just because of the boys. They're so fun. And the staff,
That's
good
awesome.
staff guys
Yeah.
around then too. Yeah. Like Casey was around for those. So he and that dude's one of the funnest guys around. Like and Frankie and all that crew, and Pick's been always like a good friend and close friend that's had a lot of influence on me as a coach. So he's been so fun to, like, just sharing stuff like that with people you love and care about is awesome. So he was funny when Pick made me laugh when we lost that game, when Lone Peak broke our streak. It was at home, and it was weird because it was almost like there was somebody died around there. And Pick made me laugh because he was like, yeah, it's like these guys have never dealt with anything like this before. He's like, we've lost games before. He was so funny. He was telling people about our Jordan High days He's like, it was
Yeah.
rare that we ever didn't, I mean, we had years there where we were 7-5 or, whatever, 8-3. And, we had a couple of good years where we won it there, but like you still lost a game here and there. To really go through that is really not the norm, right? And getting kids to understand that, but Pick just puts it in good perspective. He was always so funny that way.
That's awesome. So I'm going to let you set the record straight here because you've been targeted fairly or unfairly in the media and by some people, but I want you won that championship at Jordan with all Jordan kids. You won 6 championships at corner, 2 of them with Cole Hagan as the quarterback, one of them with Isaac Wilson as the quarterback, one of them with Bronson Evans as a quarterback. First of all, talk about those 4 kids and where they grew up and where they went to school long before they knew you.
I mean, I think, the easy thing to do when anybody has success is to find reasons to why they have it that they don't deserve, which is fine. I mean, it's what it is. I think that's kind of the natural part for people. And obviously a head coach is an easy target, I think, for a lot of people across the board on that. But like, I think a lot of that was a byproduct of us working hard as a coaching staff and trying to put a lot of time and effort into kids, and trying to help them as much as we could. And that's changed over the years too. We've gotten better and better with, I think, the way you do things, like as a coach, for sure. But those guys, like, Jordan was interesting just because, I mean, we kind of were like under the radar program a little bit. We had done some really good things offensively. And that team wasn't all Jordan kids, but it was kids that had kind of conglomerated to that area from the surrounding, area at that time, that just wanted an opportunity to play at a different place than maybe where they were at. And I think a lot of times, even when I was at Jordan, you thought like Bingham, they were doing this. I think a lot of it's just, and most of it, honestly, is just kids wanting opportunities at different places that maybe they don't get at the school they're at there now. I don't know that it's necessarily anybody's reaching out and trying to recruit them or talk to them, which I think is the case with us too. I think Dart, everybody thought I went and set up a home visit and we were giving him NIL and all that stuff, which just is absurd. It's always funny, but I think it was more like his parents recognized we have a good program and they wanted him to have an opportunity to excel. And I mean, and you look at what happened when he did that. Nothing against Roy. Roy did a great job with him. Like, a lot of his foundation was built because of Roy High School and Freddie Fernandez. He just needed a little bit different opportunity to put his name out there, and his recruiting took off and, ended up being the National Player of the Year, which is what parents want. I think that's not anything that, had to do with me or had to do with, Freddie or anybody else. It was just his parents and him wanting a different opportunity. And they recognize that. And, I know everybody thinks I recruited him here, but it was their choice, and I didn't influence that at all. They just wanted to be here. So, and the other 4, like, it's always interesting because everybody thinks we just win with, all these other kids, but Bronson was a Draper kid, was in our Little League program the whole way through, that's just tough as nails and just a great player to coach and just so fun to be around all the time. We really enjoyed him over the last, 4 years, him just finishing up, and him getting to win one and being the starter as a junior was amazing. And even this year, as his senior year was just awesome. To share that with him still. And then Isaac, I've known him since he was little. Him and Tate have been best friends, and he grew up in this area. They live right next to Corner Canyon, and I don't know why people thought he was from a different area too. I just think people don't understand it for sure. Like, and I think they just throw stones, and you just have to wear it. It doesn't really matter. You can't put a lot of thought into it. And then Cole's like the, Captain America, good old boy, like perfect image almost, you would think. You hate putting that on him because it's not fair to him, but like never lost a game as a starter, just great young man that grew up here in Draper, great parents, like just killed it, 4.0 GPA, 35 ACT, like so many great things about him, but won a lot of games, right? And it wasn't just him, it was a lot of kids around him too that were really, really good, that were all Draper kids. We were a close boundary at the time too. So we've done it, without, kids coming from outside the boundary. and we've done it with kids from, that have been, all boundary and outside the boundary. It's been both. Like, we've done it both ways when our school was closed and when it wasn't. And it's hard because you can't, I think, worry about it too much. There's a dynamic to it for sure where it makes it hard on the kids that are in your area. It's not easy on them for sure when kids come from in your area, and then it's hard to not fault kids that just are looking for a different opportunity. No different than when, parents are looking for academic reasons or any other reasons that they just want a lot for their kids and want their kids to have opportunity. So it's an
That's well
interesting,
said.
it'll be a debate that'll never end. I can tell you that. That's always going to be a debate of who's
It's
recruiting, who's doing that. It's just never going to end. It's almost like white noise out there that you have to just ignore.
well, the truth in Utah, as long as you have an open campus, which you mentioned that Corner was closed during that first three-peat,
Yeah.
kids can go wherever they want
Yeah.
as a ninth grade kid, and they can just show up unless the school is closed. And so the one quarterback we didn't talk about was Helaman, and I remember, if you remember this, the phone call you got from me, I think, was the first you heard that his parents were going to move to Draper. And of course, that's another case where people were saying, well, yeah, he must have been down at 10th View, but certainly not the case.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's just something you're always going to have. And he was another kid that was just super fun to coach and a really good player that, I think just wanted to be developed a little bit more. And there was some change going on at 10th View. I can't remember all of what was going on, but like I said, you almost just kind of have to keep your eyes forward and focus on what you got in front of you and get, help kids out and coach them up, whoever's there and who's not, and try to manage it that way. It's
Let me
tough.
ask
I'm
you,
telling you
yeah,
that there's
yeah.
no good answers for that.
Let me ask you this, talking about multi-sport athletes, because I know you agree with me that kids in high school need to participate in as many sports they can and be well-rounded. People may not know that you were the sprint coach at Jordan High when they won 5 straight boys
Corner.
championships, and then the at Corner, and then at before you won the 5 straight, you won a girls championship the first year you were there. Um, I mentioned I looked at the record books just because I thought this was incredible. Two of the top three 100 times in the history of Utah boys are Corner kids. Two of the top four 200 times. The top 8 times in the 4x1. The top 6 times in the 4x2, and the top time in the 4x4. But my question, obviously, incredible athletes, but I looked at every one of those kids, and every one of those kids were multi-sport athletes that played for you. And so I want you to obviously talk about their success and your success as a coach, because you need great kids, but the importance of having multi-sport kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. The part that I think is the best aspect for them, or the best, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, piece for being a multi-sport kid, is you give them a break from their main sport, which is more mental than it is even physical. I mean, the physical aspects are great, right? They get to go do track, they work on their speed, reducing injury that way, and protecting them with doing something that's not football is critical, but also that mental aspect of getting time away, keeping football fresh so they care about it more throughout the year. And it's something that they're not tired of. I think it's a big piece, but then also just they get to go compete and do something else with their classmates that helps them develop too. Like, that part's big. Like, when you're going and competing in a basketball game or in a wrestling match or your soccer. We've had kids that have played soccer. We got a lot of lacrosse kids, and our lacrosse team's been very successful. And a lot of the movements and things that they do are really similar to football, which has been a great tool and piece for us with kids that have came from our lacrosse program and do both. And then obviously our track kids, everybody talks about, but them competing at doing something else, with their teammates or with a different group, it really helps develop that side, and gets them, like I said, fresh, but also they're still, doing something that they're competing at that matters a lot to them, and that continues for them throughout the year, and that carries into football too, from just a competitive standpoint. And then you get all the stuff, the benefits of that sport, like lacrosse, a lot of the change of direction, some of the contact, the agility stuff that goes along with it. With track, it's speed, right? They develop a ton of that and some toughness, right? There's a lot of mental toughness in all of those, but especially if you're a 400 runner and you're running, 10 repeat 200s with short time of rest and they're puking all over the place as they're doing it. Training at lactate is not fun for those guys. And I just think it's a critical piece. Doug Robinson years ago sent me an article that the USA Today had done about soccer athletes and specialization and the increased risk for injuries. It was an incredible read. It was a long read. Me, Hutch, I don't read a lot, but I read that one. But I think it's a big part of it. And Doug talks a lot about it. I think he's done other pieces of that. But I think especially at the high school level where they're eventually going to be all in on either football or basketball or track or soccer or whatever it is, for them to have that opportunity as adults, you got to be really careful of taking that away from them. And I think they should be encouraged to play those other sports and let them be kids and do whatever they want to do. Yes, they only get to be in high school once. It's a fast 4-year window that goes by quick, as all of us coaches know. So, and they're better for it for sure. It helps them a lot.
Let me ask you one more question before we get on to the news of the day of Weber State. And as you know, I've been either coaching or an AD or played football since I was 7 years old. So I've been around the block once or twice, but
probably 5 times now.
I'm not sure how people. You won 3 in a row in 18, 19, and 20, which to me is, if it was that easy, people winning like Alabama, I think maybe won 3 in a row. I think, I don't even think the Patriots won 3 in a row. They won 2 and then off one. I think not even the Chiefs have won 3 in a row. Talk about, obviously, it is obviously satisfying, but you've done it not once, but twice. But how special and the grind that goes into it and the relationships that are made during that type of a run, if you will.
Yeah, that's the part that you love the most, is getting those kids the opportunity for that, setting them up, trying to give them that opportunity to be successful where they can enjoy that and finish the season off the right way is really almost what motivates you more than anything, especially after you win one, it's awesome. Everybody's pretty hyped. And then you're process wise, you go, through the same process, but really it's about what almost motivates you more than anything is giving those kids the best chance they can week in, week out to have that success and go win it again. And because you want that so bad for them, you want that, for the Weston Briggs type kids, for the Cole Hagans, for the, all those guys, you want them to finish things off the right way and win, a championship, because it matters so much to them. But really the process of them doing that is the key, all the lifting hours, running hours, the dedication that it takes to put them through there is really what is going to probably help them the most. Other than, you win a championship, you win it, I don't know that is going to change the life path of Bronson Evans. You know what I mean? I think he's going to be successful no matter what he does, or Weston Briggs, or, some of those kids are they're on it. But what we've been able to help them with process wise, sticking to stuff and developing some mental toughness and those type of things really, I think, leads them down that path of, hey, this is kind of the blueprint for life to be successful. And it's not guaranteed, obviously, but it gives them their best chance to really have that success. And I think, like you said, really the byproduct of maybe, winning and being successful and having some state titles. And we were lucky enough to do it, 3 times in a row, 2 different times. But it was really that process and the kids that we had. And obviously it's a lot of talent too. That's goes without saying, but what they learned from that, besides just having the success, I think is critical, is what that can lead or how that was achieved. And the way you go about doing that really matters. And that's the fun part, right? You see that at the end of the year. You've seen us kind of talk with our kids at the end of years, where we've kind of go through some of that stuff and the important parts of what football is and who they are as men, is an important part. So, and you get to see that in that's the part that drives you, because you know they're special and you love them and you want them to, finish things off and see how, the excitement and happiness they have. It's like your own kids when you're doing stuff that you get to see them be successful, and it just makes you proud as a coach and as a parent.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So now the question of the day, and this answer would include having over 1,000 texts in one day, the day after you took the job. So how does how does a successful high school coach, which is you, all of a sudden it's Thanksgiving, you're having a great time with your family, you're having dinner, blah blah blah. The next thing you know, it's a couple of weeks later, and all of a sudden, Weber State hires a high school coach to take over their program. So walk the people through that process because that's an incredible story.
Yeah, it was wild. Uh, just kind of like there was a lot going on, like at the end of the year too, because we were playing for the supposed national championship game, right?
Hmm.
I think overtime would like me just to call it the national championship game, but you know how that stuff goes. It's so hard to really determine some of that stuff with teams that were
Right.
still playing. Like Texas was still playing in California and some of those places that have great high school programs and stuff. So we had that going on, which was kind of thrown on our team. So it was a lot, right? Trying to manage that as a head coach and our staff and trying to manage that aspect of it. And then also the Weber stuff that I wasn't sure about and decided to apply and wasn't sure how serious they would take it. I was obviously very serious about it, and it just kind of took off from there. And just a lot of trust on their end of who I am as a coach and being able to build something special at Weber State. I think took a lot of trust from them being able to go hire a high school guy, which has been awesome, and got good administrators up there that are just, I think, have a good vision for what they want in a football coach and what they want in their athletic department up there. Tim Crompton was great through that process, and a lot of the interviewing committee. Just the process went really smooth, and I felt pretty strongly after interviewing through there that it was hopefully going to be something that would happen, and I was really excited about it. And heard on that Monday following that, and have just kind of, I don't even know if I've had a really chance to kind of think about it much after that. It's just been all a lot of work, which has been great. Being able to rely on great people that I kept on staff up there, and the hard part, like my wife asked me, how my day went the second day, and I told her had to let some coaches go, which was probably the worst day I've ever worked in my life, like as a coach. That part's not great. That's a hard thing to do, and great men that have worked their butt off and tried to put their best foot forward to help Weber State out. That was tough, for sure, and they deserve better than that, honestly. Like just with how hard they work, but it's just kind of a part of the game, and it's just been eyes forward, moving hard, and trying to get things ready and prepped, and working with the staff that we do have that are up there right now. Skylar Ridley's been just incredible up there, and I think he's got a chance to do some great things in the profession moving forward. But relying on those guys and guys that were in place, it's going to be fun. I'm learning a lot. High school coach, like there's a lot of things like in between the lines, I think that is very similar to the college game, especially at the higher level that we're at, and the things that we ask our kids to do from a schematic standpoint. I don't think that's going to be the crazy part. Is just more so the behind the scenes stuff, the managing the recruiting budgets, budgets in general, staff, all those type of things. It's so much different, and relying on people to help me with that part is a big piece of that. And having a little humility and understanding I don't have all the answers, which I don't for sure. Just getting into the college gig now, but being confident in knowing that I'm going to work through that process and learn it and get it down, but I'm going to need help as I do that is a good thing. So it's been a lot of that. It's been awesome so far. Everybody's been great, very welcoming, and just trying to set things up and get things going in the right direction there.
Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you one more question about. I won't ask you about the game. I know it was a tough game. Some great kids on the St. Francis side with the great kids you had, but I'm more interested in the time you were able to spend with your kids the next day. I had left to Tampa, but you were able to go to DC with those kids, and they were able to see like the Link, the Jeff,
Yeah.
the Washington, the Capitol. Just talk about that just briefly about what, because some of those kids probably have never been, and some of them may never get back there again.
Yeah, that part was fun to like and they were great. Like they were so good, like going through all of it. And there's so many good kids that I'm going to miss. They're just a part of our program, but really getting to go do that and see something that they hadn't seen before. I mean, they had seen it, on TV or cameras or pictures or whatever. And some of them had seen it there, but it was cold and like really windy, and that's a walk. So like they were out there, and it was just kind of fun just going and doing that stuff. And, some of them were, after we walk and see a couple things, they took a little break and played a little hacky sack, or just seeing them as a group. It's fun. It's like when you take, family somewhere, like similar like feelings to that, you just it's a good time. Like as someone that, with other coaches and players, or like teachers that were there that were with us and coaches, like it was just fun. I think as a whole group to see all those kids get to go do that. It was cool. Just another thing like that, you don't get to do that very often as a coach, like have a group together and go see like all these great Washington monuments and history, going through the war memorials that are all through there, and kind of get to appreciate that and understand our history there, and see the service that people have provided for this country, and the freedoms that we have, and our agency that we have because of all these people. It was incredible. And I think the kids really appreciated that too. And that was special for sure. They were fun, and they were freezing. And I was cold. I got cold too. And I was pretty bundled up. We walked a ton. I think it was like 5 miles or something like that. We laid it out there.
Yeah, well, I think people don't understand. I think from the Washington Monument to the Capitals, probably a mile and a half, and then it's at least a mile from the monument down to the Link, which is through that reflecting pool on the side, and then you went down to the Jeff and to the White House. So that's incredible. Thanks for sharing. We'll finish up with a couple of questions here, Coach. The first being, if you have, and I always end my podcast this way, it's usually about ADs, but I want to call on your coaching expertise. If you had two suggestions for a brand new high school coach and they need to follow Eric's suggestions in order to become a success coaching in high school, no matter what the sport is, what would your two suggestions be?
So probably the first one would be is try to serve your players as much as you can, like in any facet. And that includes so many different ways. It can be personally, it can be academically, it can be like weight room, strength conditioning stuff. All that stuff becomes really critical, and being invested in that part really, and taking that service approach to it. And nothing's, too big for you as a leader, as a head coach too. Like they just finding ways where you're going to get in and rub elbows with them, and get your, hands dirty in the work of just building your program. In a lot of different ways. And I think you have to be the one that's in front of that. It's, picking stuff up. It's, cleaning things up, getting water for them. It's everything, like, especially as a high school coach, writing good weightlifting programs. I like to lift with our kids, which I thought always helped a ton and got me really involved with them, and getting to kind of understand and see a coach that's invested in what they're doing and can do what they're doing. And the relationships you get to build in there with them too. And I think the weight room really builds a lot of that. It builds a lot of leadership, a lot of camaraderie. It builds a lot of teamwork, accountability, like all those things become really important. That would probably be my second piece, is just the importance of that. Because then you get all those things, but you're building good athletes, especially if your program structure is right. And you're developing speed and those type of things, which are great ways to also build those other, 5 characteristics I talked about. So, but a lot of that starts with just serving like your athletes as much as you can, not vice versa. It's what you can do for them and not what they can do for you. And I think everybody thinks that way, but like your actions are going to show that. That's really what matters. You can say it as much as you want, but your actions have to show that that's really what you care about, especially at the high school level. It's so critical. I think they're with where they're at. They're so young and impressionable, and they make so many mistakes, as do you as a coach, but they really do. Like if you can think about when you're a high school kid, I mean, boy, especially you're trying to figure stuff out on another level for sure. So I think back when I was a high school kid, I did a lot of stupid stuff. So I think having somebody that can kind of be a mentor for you and you can look up to and will keep you from maybe being as dumb as you normally might be at that age is critical.
Well said. Great pieces of advice. We'll finish with this. Eric, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Man, that's a good one. You know, you should ask me, Hutch, is no, I'm not going to go there. I was going to give you crap about when you used to bust my chops when Andrea and I first started dating. When Andrea threw out those flowers I gave her, and you were always on me, which was a good characteristic as a dad. Obviously, she was mad at me for a reason, so you
Well,
probably
yeah, but
you're a little tough.
now that you're a dad, now you understand. Now that the shoe's
Yeah,
on
for
the other
sure.
foot.
Yeah, I should have put you on the spot on that one. That would have been a good one. No,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just like you touched on a lot of it, but I think the journey of understanding as a coach, I think that you're going to have to continue to grow and learn. And I mean, across the board, I mean, X's and O's, um, strength conditioning, knowing your players, being able to adapt, like you said, with what you have as a coach or different situations that come your way is really critical. But if you have the approach that you're going to learn and you're going to continue to learn and get better and you can change and adapt, you're going to last a long time in the coaching profession. I think where people have a hard time is where they feel like they might have all the answers or they think they have it all figured out. And there's a lot of different ways to do things. And I think learning what's best for you and then continuing to learn and adapt to that is going to keep people moving in this profession. And kids need good leaders as a whole and good people around them. So I think keeping coaches in it and being in it for a long time, I think is critical. And that's one of the ways I think, or the most important way to do it is you got to continue learning and kind of keep that ego in check. And you don't have all the answers. And I think we've changed a ton, even just from a schematic standpoint, since I've been coaching. So I think that's something you just have to do.
Great advice. On that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been 7-time state football champion Eric Kjar at Jordan and Corner Canyon, and now head coach at Weber State University in football. Eric, thank you so much for being the guest today.
Yeah, thanks, Hutch. Appreciate it.
For our
Have a good
listeners,
one.
we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.